Most people, if asked to describe their personality, reach for the same handful of words: friendly, quiet, outgoing, hard-working. These are not inaccurate descriptions, but they are surface descriptions, the visible layer of behavior, rather than the underlying architecture that produces it. And beneath that surface, most people have never had occasion to look at themselves with enough precision to notice what is actually distinctive about how they are built. What makes their experience of the world genuinely different from what most people around them are experiencing? What accounts for the recurring sense that certain things that seem to come easily to others require significantly more effort from them, and certain things that others find effortful feel, to them, almost instinctive? The rare personality type is not a single profile. It is a cluster of features that appear together less frequently than average, a combination of cognitive style, emotional processing, and relational orientation that produces a specific kind of person. One who is genuinely difficult to categorize, who doesn't fit comfortably into the usual social scripts, who has spent a significant portion of their life feeling partially misunderstood by almost everyone, and who has developed, in response, a rich and complex interior life that most people only glimpse. These are 3 signs that you might be one. The first sign is that you live more deeply in ideas than in information. Most people encounter a concept and move on. They receive information, store it, and deploy it when relevant. For you, the encounter with an idea doesn't end there. The idea keeps going. It generates questions. It connects to other ideas. It opens into implications that seem to extend further than the original concept. What most people experience as a topic, you experience as a territory. And the habit of following a thought into its implications, rather than stopping when you've grasped the surface, produces a relationship with knowledge that is fundamentally different from the one most people have. Psychologists, studying intellectual openness, the 5th dimension of the 5-factor model of personality, and the one most closely associated with creative and intellectual achievement, document that people who score high on this dimension experience ideas as having inherent pull. They are not motivated to learn by external incentive. They are motivated by something that functions more like compulsion, the specific, activating quality that an interesting question has on a mind that is built to pursue it. The high openness person does not choose to go deep. They find that staying shallow requires more effort than going deep does. And this orientation toward depth over breadth, maintained consistently across years, produces a person who knows certain things with an unusual thoroughness, and who is genuinely surprised when others find the depth excessive, rather than simply what thinking is supposed to be. The second sign is that you have a complicated relationship with belonging, not a fear of connection, a specific frustration with its usual conditions. Most social environments operate at a level of discourse that the rare personality type finds sustainable but not fully satisfying. They can participate. They can be warm, engaging, even genuinely enjoyed as a companion, and they return from these interactions aware that something was not quite exchanged. That the conversation happened at a register, slightly below the one where they actually live, that the version of themselves that was present in the room was a real version, but not the whole version, and the whole version is the one that almost nobody gets access to. This is not elitism. It is not difficulty or arrogance or social anxiety presenting as depth. It is the specific loneliness of someone who has, through the combination of cognitive complexity and emotional depth that characterizes this personality profile, developed a way of engaging with ideas and with other people that requires a particular quality of encounter, one that most ordinary social contexts are not designed to provide. Research on what is sometimes called the depth of processing dimension confirms that people who process information and emotion more thoroughly are more particular about the conditions under which they feel genuinely engaged. They are less tolerant of superficiality, not because they are superior to it, but because their nervous system is genuinely less satisfied by it. The meal that keeps most people full doesn't reach them at the same level. They need something different, and the world rarely offers it without considerable searching. If any of this is landing somewhere in you, take a moment to like the video. It helps more people find conversations like this one. And, if understanding what makes your particular psychological profile genuinely unusual is something you want more of, subscribing makes that possible. The third sign is the most specific and the most difficult to explain to anyone who doesn't share it. It is the experience of holding contradictions without needing to resolve them. Most people encounter a contradiction between two values they hold, between two things they know to be true, between their experience of a person and their belief about what people are like, and they feel pressure toward resolution, toward making the two things compatible, or choosing one, or explaining away the tension. The rare personality type does something different. They hold the tension. They live inside the contradiction, without requiring it to collapse into a single, coherent position. They are comfortable with the idea that reality might genuinely contain irresolvable tensions, that the map might legitimately need multiple orientations to represent the territory, that two things which cannot both be fully true might both be partially true in ways that are equally important. Psychologists studying integrative complexity, the cognitive capacity to hold multiple dimensions of an issue simultaneously and recognize their legitimate interaction, document that this capacity is both rare and consequential. It is associated with wiser decision-making under uncertainty, more nuanced interpersonal understanding, and more sophisticated ethical reasoning. It is also associated with persistent difficulty in environments that reward simple, clear, confident positions. The person who lives in the tension is often experienced, by those who don't share this orientation, as uncertain, uncommitted, or frustratingly unwilling to just decide. What is actually happening is a refusal to sacrifice accuracy for the appearance of clarity. Here is the paradox that holds all three of these signs together. The rare personality type is, in most respects, unusually capable. The depth of idea engagement produces unusual knowledge. The selectivity about belonging produces an unusual depth of connection when connection does occur. The tolerance for contradiction produces an unusual quality of judgment. And each of these capacities comes paired with a corresponding cost that most people around them don't see and don't account for: the exhaustion of going deep continuously, the loneliness of belonging partially everywhere and fully almost nowhere, the friction of operating with a level of nuance that most environments don't reward. The cost is real, and the capacity is real, and they are not separable. You cannot have the depth without exhaustion. You cannot have selectivity without loneliness. You cannot have the tolerance for contradiction without the friction it creates with people who need things to be simpler than they are. What you can have, what becomes possible when these signs are understood rather than explained away, is a clarity about what you are actually built for. And what you are built for is rarely what the ordinary social world most easily rewards. It is something rarer than that, and more valuable, and harder to find an audience for. But the things that are hardest to find an audience for are almost always the things the world most needs someone to be doing. Which of these three signs has caused you the most friction in your life? And have you ever been in a context where it was finally recognized as the strength it actually is? Hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.